Hi, welcome to Garden Theory. My name's Zach. Have you ever wondered how to create stunning color palettes for your garden? One of my favorite things about gardening is the wonderful color palettes that people can come up with. Color is crucial for landscape design because it can completely transform a space and evoke so many different emotions. Over the last two episodes, talked a lot about different elements and principles of design, and in this episode, we're going to talk about color and value. We will explore how pastels and saturated colors can affect your garden's aesthetic. Let's discover how you can bring your garden to life with color. I do want to preface today's episode. I'm not a huge expert in colors, so I hope this episode doesn't come off as me telling you what colors you should pick for your garden. Today I'm going to just talk about some of the colors that I really enjoy in a couple different gardens that we're going to walk through today. And we're just going to explore those, how they make me feel, which color palettes I like, and hopefully that can rub off on you on any color palettes that you like from today's episode. So with that, let's get going.
So for this segment, I thought it'd be fun to go look at some of the gardens that I visited over the course of 2024. I put a couple clips together into this pretty short. I think it's only 4 minutes, so it shouldn't take us very long to get through these, and we'll just talk about some of the colors that I really liked from some of these gardens. We'll talk a little bit about the plants. And so, yeah, hopefully this works. This is kind of my first time I'm kind of messing with OBS, so hopefully the recording all sounds good, but let's just go ahead and dive in. So let me go ahead and pause it real quick. So for this first batch of videos, this is at Crystal Bridges Museum. The first two places, we're going to do Crystal Bridges and the Ozark Botanical Garden. They're both kind of naturalistic, a lot of native plants and stuff like that. We'll look at those, and then we're going to go look at some annual flower beds that I visited. And so that's what we're going to be looking at. So on this one, we have some really pretty, let me pause it one more time. We got some really pretty golden ragwort. Makes this beautiful ground cover in the spring with all these beautiful yellow flowers on it. I believe they're related to, I think it's the aster family of plants, but they're a really good native plant. The deer don't mess with them too much from what I've seen. And throughout the rest of the year after they're done flowering in the early spring, and I'm kind of talking like March to April from what I remember last year. But once they die back, those it's kind of a ground cover, kind of leafy. It's not super interesting after the flowers, but it's a really good one. And we're talking about the color yellow because it is a great plant to have yellow flowers for, especially for those early spring months. If you want something besides, bulbs and stuff like that, it's a really good native plant for those first early spring flowers. So yeah, as you can kind of see on some of these clips, it just kind of coats the entire hillside and it looks so pretty. I'm a big fan of golden ragwort in the spring. It's such a pretty one. Another really good one that we'll show some clips here in 1 second. But you compare it with Virginia bluebells really nicely because they bloom kind of the same time. And I believe there's a clip, or actually no, sorry. This one, there's one little clip before but this is Celandine poppy. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's a native poppy species in the eastern United States. It's a really good one. The deer do like to nibble on this one. It's not as resistant as the golden ragwort. That's another great one to pair with those yellow flowers, and it's a very sweet little poppy that I like. So that's it right there. Yeah, and so this is the Virginia bluebell I was talking about. These guys are doing really good. They're kind of similar to bulbs. I don't think they're quite a bulb. They might be a corm or something else. But they got these really pretty blue flowers. They kind of start off a little purple as buds, but as they bloom, they have a really nice, pretty blue color to them, as you see in this clip. And you can kind of see where they get their name, Virginia bluebells, and they pair really nicely with the golden ragwort. So let me pause here. This is an oak leaf hydrangea, another one native to the eastern United States. I want to bring up this one and other hydrangeas as well because I really love hydrangea's white flowers, on these ones at least. I know there's some that are kind of purple and blue, but these really white flowers in particular, let me pause it on this clip here too. This is I think that's a limelight hydrangea. I'm not 100% sure. But hydrangeas, especially these really nice white ones, white's always an interesting color for me. I think it kind of gives a spirit of elegance to it and grace. It's kind of a almost a formal look of a flower, even though it's not really that different in terms of other colors. But I think white really stands out. I really like white flowers in the evening, 'cause as the sun sets and there's less light, that white really pops out against it at night. And I really like how the white flowers look at in the evening. And so I think white flowers, they're very striking due to them being that bright color that they are. And so they really pop out against some of the other more dull colors that you may have in your landscape design. And sometimes white could be a little daunting to pair with. And I think there's a clip after this one that kind of will show an example of that. Or I think it might be later down in here, but we'll talk about it when we get to that point. And so, yeah, I really like hydrangeas. They're one of my favorites. So let me pause on this clip. So this is Northern Sea Oat. And I wanted to bring up our grasses, like ornamental grasses, because they're a really good one for your colors. Because a lot of times we don't want to be too afraid of using greens. There's a couple other clips in here we'll talk about that. But we really don't want to be too afraid of using our greens and browns in our color design. And a lot of the ways we can use our green colors is through the textures, which is a principle of landscape design that we're going to talk about in its own episode. But grasses are a great way to add motion to the space from how it flows. And using different varieties, you can have excitement even with using green colors. But we'll talk a little bit more about that when we do the principles of landscape design. But yeah, I really like northern sea oats. They're such a pretty one. Another fun name for them is fish on a pole, which I find fun. So this one is a white variation of a red or of a red bud. This is kind of one of those kind of weeping ones that they made, and this is at Crystal Bridges, I think, as well. And so this picture's of a normal redbud tree that you probably seen as a little bit more common. But I wanted to mention these because I think these are the only trees I have on this color video. There's some sirens going outside, so hopefully you don't hear this while I'm talking. But with trees, you want to be pretty smart with your tree choices when we're talking about color, because they're a great way that you can add color up higher in your canopy. Because a lot of times with our perennials, they're kind of roughly all on the same level. And so having trees with their beautiful flowers, you have your dogwoods and redbuds in the spring. Even some magnolia species are in the spring into the summer. So it's a great way to transition from different periods of the year to add different coloring interests. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we kind of want to make sure we're planning for the entire season when we're picking our colors. But yeah, I really like redbud trees. And they're actually edible. Don't know if any of y'all have tried it. I tasted it last spring and it actually wasn't too bad, so I definitely would recommend trying those out. So let me pause on this clip here. So this is at the Butterfly Garden at Crystal Bridges. And these are right before most of their flowers were about to bloom. But you can still see, even right now where everything's still green and a whole lot of flowers yet, you can still see the variety of different textures of the leaves, different heights on some of them, and so you can create interest that way. Even when your plants are a little low on their flowers, it's if things are dwindling, it's good to have a high variety of different plants like you see in these beds, because that provides interest in of itself to have that diversity in there. I would typically try to stay away from just picking one or two main plants. It's good to have a good variety, just as you see in this flower bed. So yeah, so now we're gonna move on to the Ozark Botanical Garden. And they were really good with their design. It was a really good mix of annuals with native plants. And so I thought they did a great job with this. And so this is one of their annual beds. And so this is a good example of pairing white flowers. In this case, we got red and yellow tulips with a primarily white, looks like pansies or violas in the foreground, which I think that works pretty well. But sometimes it's good to have just a pairing of colors to go next to the white. if you're adding a bunch of colors to the white, it might look a little like, those white confetti birthday cakes, And so of course, there's different color palettes you can do with that, but I think they do a pretty good job here. They also have that transition of the height going from the white violas up to the red and yellow tulips. And so I think that's a pretty good one. We're sticking with kind of formal shapes on this one because we got the layered looks and everything's kind of in together on that line. But this is the one that I really liked quite a bit. They did a great job on their borders, mixing annuals and perennials. And so if you look closely, some of the perennials we got a couple shrubs. I don't remember if those were peonies or not. There's a few shrubs in there, perennial salvia. I believe alliums come back every year, so that would be a perennial. But then we have all the pansies and the ground cover that are annual that are kind of mixed in, and so I think they did a really good job on these beds. I think that's really a good way to do it. And so we kind of see from what I can tell from the video, our main perennials are these purples, and they kind of repeat the purple color with different plants. So they have purple salvia and purple alliums repeated in sections throughout the landscape. And then they have the more colorful. There looks like there's a band of pink flowers going in there. Maybe the shrubs kind of look like they might have pink flowers. And then we have a more colorful pansy at the base. And so I think that's a really good way to repeat that pattern. So let me pause here. That's another good look at the bed. So again, we have that. I think those pink flowers might be phlox from what it looks like. And sorry if my eyes get off center. I kind of have to look at these images while we're talking, but we kind of see that repeating pattern, and I think they do a pretty good job on these. I was pretty impressed. And so let me pause here. So this is another one. They do a lot of white and mixing with different colors, and I think that works out pretty well for them. I really like the mixing of white, purple, and pink, and this one's got a bit of yellow in there too. So I think the main thing is, not to be too afraid of mixing different colors together. Sometimes we kind of want to stick with what we know. I think it's also good to experiment sometimes. You're like, well, I'm not sure if these will go well together, but let me experiment, maybe just on one area. And if I like it, we can expand it. This is another really pretty spot of a lot of great different greens. And the way we're bringing interest to the space is through all those beautiful different textures that they have. So from the hostas to the sedges to the base of those columbines, they all look really pretty. And those little, almost like someone splashed a paintbrush of blue in there. That just adds that nice little focal point. And maybe ordinarily those columbines wouldn't be a focal point if they were surrounded by a whole lot of other big flowers. But being smart with how they place this, with having a lot of greens, it kind of helps to create those focal point on the columbine. Having them have that tall and blue speckles of flowers, I think look really nice together. So that's one way, we can limit our color options, but we can still provide interest and a focal point to the space. And so I think these are a type of false indigo that are yellow. I'm not 100% sure what species these are, but that's a really pretty yellow flower. And again, it's really good to mix and repeat colors from your perennials to your annuals to your shrubs and trees. Another really great color of those really pretty blue irises. And I think irises you can pretty much get in any color nowadays, from red to blue and yellow. I mean, I think you can get them in almost any of the main colors. All right, so this is the one I was talking about with the hydrangeas, how to pair white colors with others. And so this one's kind of got I believe what you would call a triadic color scheme, where you have three colors that are equal distance across the color wheel. And so we got yellow, red, and blue in this one, as well as pink, but that's a just red with more white in it. So it's really just those three main colors that we have. And I think that works pretty well with the white. I think that makes it almost a little bit more playful that way. I think it makes having the white in the background with the really pretty colors in the foreground. I think play well together. I feel like it makes it kind of exciting, you know, almost like it would be a garden space for kids and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the atmosphere that gives me a playful and a nice vibe, and it kind of helps to lower the brightness of the hydrangeas having that in the foreground. All right, so this is another really um, there's a lot of plants going on in this one. So this one I really like. It's got um, kind of three main colors. It's got the yellow from these black-eyed Susans, and we got a bit of purple from some, I think there might be sun patiens and the purple fountain grass. And then we also have a bit of white in there, as well as the green from the sweet potato vine. And so I think all of those really pair nicely together. And there's a bit of yellow in the sweet potato vines. Um, yeah, I'll pause it right here. But there, since that sweet potato vine's got that really nice yellow green in there, the yellow that's in that green kind of helps to pair well with the black-eyed Susan's kind of mustardy yellow. And so having that contrast from the purple and the yellow as your base, but we're not really having a direct contrast line here. It's kind of a split complementary color. And so I think that works pretty well in this one that I really like. Yeah, so this is a good closer shot of it. So you can kind of see the purple in those sun patiens, and then having that contrast against the yellow that's in the black-eyed Susan and that yellow green in the sweet potato vine. And so that kind of helps to create a excuse me, a natural contrast with the little specks of white in there as well, which I think look really nice. And so yeah, think that's another great way to combine your colors, and I think that looks really pretty. All right, so here's another one we got a lot of different colors on. So we have, I believe, coleus and towards the middle, we got two different types. We got one with a kind of red maroon foliage, and then another one with that yellow green color on it. And both of those complement each other pretty nicely, I think. Um, and then we got a lot of blue, purples, and pinks in the rest of the annuals. So this one's a pretty bold color scheme. That might be a bit more of a tricky one. I'll pause it right here. That's a pretty good close-up look of it. This one could be a little tricky. I think blue and maroon go pretty well together as complementary colors. And then the pink and the yellow of the other one, I think pair nicely too. And so this one's kind of an interesting one. We got a bit of, not quite sure what kind of color scheme this would be off the top of my head. But this one, again, a good example of, you know, it's okay to be bold with some of your colors. I think they can still work out, even if you're not quite sure what kind of color scheme you're coming up with. All right, so for these final clips, these are some tulip annual arrangements I wanted to look over since we're kind of getting towards that time of year where we're going to start seeing some of those bulbs pop back up here in the next few weeks. And so this one's a really pretty one. We got mainly red and orange as the main ones it looks like, and we got a little bit of pink and white in there as well. And so a lot of times when we're having our warm colors from red, yellow, and orange, a lot of those kind of bring a lot of warmth and excitement to your space, where your blue and purples and greens sometimes will bring some cool and and some calming energy to the space. And so having a lot of excitement in that I think works well for spring flowers. And there's a little bit of blue pansies in there and violas in the underground with on the underneath level of it, which I think adds as a nice complement to it. So here's one. This is more of a formal design for our tulips. We kind of have two main rows. We got some yellow and white daffodils on one side and some pink, kind of salmony orange colored tulips on the other. And so I think that works really well. Pink and yellow are great spring and kind of Easter colors, people call them. And so I think those work well together. And that's a way, you know, we kind of just have two main lines, and there's nothing wrong if we want to just keep it to lines and shape. I think that works well, but I also like the mix look as well. I think that works too. And I believe this is our last one for this video. So we have purple and pink in the middle and yellow and white on the outside. And so purple and yellow being contrasting colors on the color wheel are going to naturally provide some interest there. And so I think that looks really nice. I think that's a great way to do our colors. And so hopefully you enjoyed going through some of these, and hopefully you like some of the color palettes I showed here. I know this probably isn't all possible color palettes you can come up with. You can probably come up with a ton of different ones if you really tried. But I hope this at least showed you some examples of different color palettes you can try in your own backyard.
Alright, so I hope you enjoyed going through those gardens. For the last part of this video, I kind of want to give you all some tips and feedback that I talked a little bit about. The main thing is talking about how to plan for your colors for your entire season. We want to do our best to try to have seasonal interest for all 4 seasons of the year. So I think it's always a great idea when we're talking about garden design is we'll get some pen and a notebook out and just kind of write down some of our favorite plants and their bloom times, especially in the ones of colors that you would like. So I would go, starting on spring flowers, which ones you like, summer, fall, winter. And whenever you have a gap of something, you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'll have something between our early summer flowers to our early fall ones during that heat of summer. Maybe I don't have something. I think that's a great time to research different ones so we have different colors cycling throughout the entire year. And that way you can have all those really pretty colors to enjoy. But like I mentioned, we can also have a lot of fun just with our greens and different foliage and stuff like that. I would definitely ask y'all to share some of your favorite colors that we talked about in this video. What are some of your favorite color palettes that you like to see? And next week we're going to talk about texture next as the next element of design. And so please subscribe so you can be notified for that. Thank you so much for watching here at Garden Theory.